Hey gang, I'm working in my studio today. Yay! I am very happy to be downstairs in my studio. Lighting is not as great down here right now, but I am working on it. So for today, I thought we could have a discussion on how finishing your yarn affects it. Now I wanted to do something that's a very dramatic change from the spun to the finish to the wet finished. So what I have is some rambouillet. Rambouillet is very high crimp, so your change from spun and plied to wet finish is very dramatic. So what I'm going to do is spin up a bobbin of this, then we'll chain ply it. We'll take half of it and keep it dry. We'll take the other half and we'll wet finish it, and then we'll compare them to see the differences. And I'm hoping this one will be dramatic. I couldn't find the actual fleece I wanted to use, the one I know that changes very dramatically, but this one should do the same, because the finer the crimp, the more it's going to change when you finish it. So I'm going to get spinning the single. I'll put you on time lapse so you can watch a bit of that, and then we'll chain ply it and go from there. Alright, so I got my single chain plied into a nice, probably fingering weight yarn. So what I'm going to do is we're going to wrap half of it as one skein and leave it dry. and then we will wash the other half. It's still a really high uptake. Oh, no. All right, so I spun, this is a woolen prep, but I spun it worsted, so I would call that a semi-worsted. I used a short forward draw, keeping the twist out of the drafting triangle in an effort to stretch out the fiber and get some of the air out, and going for a very springy yarn. Just to show an exaggeration of the difference that finishing makes. I'm hoping this experiment will work with this fleece. All right, that's enough for this skein. Now this fiber might look rough on camera, but it is super soft, like crazy soft. Even spun, it's still very silky and soft. Rambouillet is, I believe, a merino mix that was developed, I think, in the States. I'd have to look that up, confirm my rememberings, but it's a lovely fleece. I bought this one in a clearance sale, and it was obviously a coated fleece because there's like next to no veggie matter in this fleece. It's very, very pretty. I've also had it for a few years. My whole life stopped for a while when my husband got sick, so a lot of what I'm completing these days was stuff that I started before he got sick. All right. So there's skein one, and you can see how it over twists. All right, now we're just gonna skein off the rest of it. Oh my gosh, this wheel drives me nuts. Oh, here we go. That'll make life easier. All right. Here's our second skein. I've been dyeing between spinning too, so it's not dirt all over my hands. It's dye. Because, you know, a smart person would wear gloves. I guess I'm not particularly smart because I always forget to put on my gloves. I really don't bother unless I'm doing squeezy bottles, squish it in, where I'm actually dealing with a lot of dye. Otherwise, I don't worry about it. It comes off fairly easily within a couple of days. All right. There's skein one and skein two. Same over twist. They hang the same. Everything pretty much looks the same. Now we're going to take one skein and wash it and hang it to dry. So let's move to the dye room where the water is. So since we just have the one little teeny tiny skein to washed, I don't know where that accent came from. I'm just going to use my little salad spinner. I'm just going to use some shampoo conditioner. You can use whatever you would like. This is just my preferred finishing soap for all things. Get some nice hot water. Here's our skein of yarn. And we're going to pop her in. I'm going to smush it all in there. Smush, smush, smush. And my finishing techniques vary depending on the yarn. This is a nice soft yarn that I want to kind of move a little bit, so I'm being a little bit rough with it. Some people like to thwack, some people like to beat it up, some people like to savage it with a plunger. I'm not doing anything that rough. My water's not that hot. I'm just kind of squishing it around. So what happens with the magic of water is it reactivates the twist. Let's see if we can do a quick demo with some combed fiber. So here's a little chunk of BFL roving. And you can see how it's very straight and smooth. Now, if we take it and we get it wet, it reactivates the twist. You can see the curl start to come back into it. It's really hard to see without an up-close camera. But if we let this dry, you can see the crimp is starting to come back. See how it's coming in here? So when you spin a yarn, what happens is you reactivate that crimp. So it changes your yarn. That crimp is what gives it the elasticity, the ability to bounce back. So when you wet it, you reactivate the crimp. So that's what we're doing with this skein of yarn. So what it's going to do is it's going to pull the yarn in and it's going to change it. So there we go. There's our washed yarn. And you can see how it's hanging balanced now as compared to our initial skein. Now, with my skeins of yarn, I do not hang weighted. All I do is I give them a couple of snaps and then I just hang them to dry. So we're going to let this dry, hanging here, no weight. Okay, it's just hanging. And this is our comparison skein. I'm just going to put that on the shelf right above it so I don't lose it. Here we go. There's our comparison. So this one is not finished. And this one is hanging to dry, and we'll compare them when it's dry. All right, so our yarn is dry. It's time to compare finished versus unfinished. So here's our skein, chain plied and just taken off on a nitty knotty. And here is our wet finish skein. So stop focusing on me. There we go. And you can see how it fluffed up. So comparison side by side. Now we'll put the tops together. Now look at the length of the skein. You can see how as the twist distributed and the crimp reactivated and pulled it into a more balanced yarn, how it also brought it out to the length. Now I have had fleeces where I have washed it and activated the crimp and it ended up here because it pulled in the fibers and made the yarn shorter. So this is why you should finish your skeins before you work with them. Now again, this is a case of do as I say, not do as I do, because often I don't finish them. I just work with them, which is, bad me. But here is, okay, the top is the unfinished and the bottom is the finished. Now, I don't know if you can see the difference in the fiber as much as you can feel it. This one is tighter and crisper. This one is softer. It's bloomed a bit and it's wonderful. So that's just a quick visualization on why you need to finish your yarn. So I hope that gave you some information that's useful to you, and I hope you had some fun coming along with me. And I'm going to keep doing up some demos and doing spinning and having some fun. So if you enjoy the ride, subscribe and let's have some fun. So thanks, guys. See ya.